Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're going to talk about something that might be the most mysterious thing in the entire universe. And that's you, the self.
So, let's just start with a really simple question. Or at least it seems simple. Who exactly is the person listening to my voice right now? Who is the you inside your head?
Now, check this out. The neurophilosopher Thomas Metzinger kicks off his book, The Ego Tunnel, with this absolute bombshell of a line. It's a claim so wild, it basically takes a sledgehammer to the very foundation of, everything you think you are. All right, so let's really get into this. What in the world could that possibly mean? That the you who feels things, who thinks, who's experiencing this right now, isn't real? To even begin to wrap our heads around that, we need a totally new way of looking at the mind. And Metzinger gives us a map for this strange new territory. It's his central idea, and it's a brilliant metaphor. He calls it the ego tunnel. And trust me, this idea is a game changer. It's going to completely reframe how you think about your relationship with, reality itself. Okay, here's the core of it. Get this. You have never, not once, experienced the world directly. What you think is reality is actually more like a super advanced, real-time virtual reality simulation that's running inside your brain. And who's the main character, the player avatar in this simulation? It's a model of you that your brain created. So you're not actually looking out at the world, you're living inside your brain's best possible guess of what the world is like.
And this is why the ego tunnel idea is so powerful. It's like a master key. It helps unlock some of the biggest, oldest mysteries of consciousness. Like, why does your experience feel like one single unified thing? How does your brain create this feeling of right now? And why are we so convinced that what we see is exactly what's out there? It even helps explain why it's so darn hard to describe the taste of a strawberry to someone who's never had one.
The best way to prove you're in a simulation is to find a glitch, right? Well, the same thing goes for our consciousness. When it breaks, when it glitches, that's when we get to peek behind the curtain and see the machinery that's running the whole show.
Metzinger actually had this happen to him. He talks about having these out-of-body experiences, where his sense of self, that little avatar of him, just floated away from his brain's model of his physical body. It's like the player character desynced from the physical model. And for him, that was this incredibly powerful first-hand proof that feeling like you're inside your body, that's just a feature your brain creates. It's not some law of the universe.
And you see this in other ways too, ways that are a bit more common. Think about phantom limb syndrome. That's just the brain's body model refusing to update, even after the real limb is gone. Or the famous rubber hand illusion, where your brain can literally be tricked into thinking a fake hand is part of your body. What do both of these tell us? That our sense of physical self isn't set in stone. It's surprisingly, it's editable.
But okay, it gets even weirder than that. Check out this wild experiment. Psychologists basically showed that our feeling of free will, of making a conscious choice, might just be a story our brain tells itself. Here's how it works. If a thought pops into your head right before an action happens, your brain's default setting is to create a narrative that says, yep, I meant to do that, even if you didn't. So that feeling of being in control, it could just be your brain being a really good storyteller after the event has already happened.
The most common glitch of all is one we all experience every single night: dreaming. It's like our main simulation shuts down, and we reboot into this bizarre, surreal world. And to really talk about dreams, you kind of have to go back to the original explorer of that inner landscape, Sigmund Freud.
Way before anyone was talking about brains as computers, Freud had this radical idea. He said dreams aren't just random noise from your brain firing off at night. No, he believed they were coded messages right from the engine room of the mind, the unconscious. It was all about wish fulfillment, a way for our deepest and sometimes darkest desires to get acted out in a symbolic way, so we're not so disturbed that we wake up.
So for Freud, every dream is like an iceberg. You've got the manifest content. That's the weird movie you remember when you wake up, the part above the water. But the real action is the latent content underneath, the hidden true meaning that the dream is trying to disguise. And the whole game of dream analysis was trying to figure out how to translate the bizarre story on the surface into the real message hidden below.
And this is where you get things like a dream dictionary, a sort of code book for what these symbols mean. Now look, modern science has moved on from a lot of the specific details here. But Freud's big idea still echoes, right? The idea that our inner world has a hidden, symbolic language. It doesn't really matter if you call it the unconscious or a simulation. The basic principle is exactly the same. What you see on the surface is not the whole story.
Okay, so this all leads to a really mind-bending question. If our self is basically just a super complex piece of software running on our biological hardware, our brain, then could we build one? Could we create an artificial self on silicon hardware?
Believe it or not, we've kind of already started. You've got projects like the RoboRoach, which are these biohybrids. It's an artificial controller, a little backpack that's literally steering a living cockroach. The line between a living thing and a machine, it's starting to get real blurry. But this is a whole other level. This robot doesn't come with a pre-programmed set of instructions. It has to figure itself out. It develops its own internal self-model completely on its own. It literally learns what its body is and how it works through trial and error, a lot like a baby learning to walk.
So what you're seeing here is its learning process. It tries to move, and based on what it feels, it creates a bunch of different theories, different self-models about how its body works. Then it tests those theories to see which one matches reality. But here's the absolutely incredible part. The researchers took off one of its legs. At first, the robot is totally confused, but then it runs through the process again, figures out that its body has changed, updates its own internal self-model, and teaches itself how to limp. That is a basic but very, very real form of self-awareness.
So, where does this all leave us? We've gone from philosophy all the way to robotics, and it doesn't just give us neat answers. In fact, it does the opposite. It confronts us with some of the biggest, most important questions we could possibly ask about our own future.
Because according to Metzinger, evolution didn't build this ego tunnel to make us happy. Not at all. It built it to make us survive. It's basically a motivation engine that's designed to keep us on what he calls the hedonistic treadmill, always chasing the next good feeling, always running from the next bad one. All of it just to keep the species going.
And think about what that means for our actual experience. There was this study where they just randomly pinged students and asked a simple question. The moment you were just in, would you want to relive it forever? The result? The students said no to more than 2/3 of the moments of their own lives. A huge chunk of our conscious experience is just not that great.
And that brings us right to the brink of a brand new ethical landscape. Because as we start to figure out how our own minds work, we're also getting the tools to build new minds and even to change our own. The questions you see here, this isn't science fiction anymore. This is happening now. We have to make some huge decisions about artificial suffering, about our responsibility, and about what the future of consciousness is even going to look like.
So, realizing that yourself is a simulation, that's not the end of the story. It's the beginning. It's like being handed the source code to your own operating system. The question isn't just who am I anymore. The real question, the one we all have to answer now, is who do we want to become?